Brother Khalil began by revisiting a crucial distinction within every one of us. He explained there exist two competing drivers. The first, he said, is the nafs, the animal instinct. This is the voice of fear and greed, constantly seeking pleasure and fleeing pain. We often call this human nature, he noted, like when we say the stock market is driven by fear and greed. But that is a mistake. That is not human nature. That is the animal nature within the human. He then introduced the second force, the Fitrah. This, Brother Khalil emphasized, is our true divine nature. When it awakens, and it awakens suddenly, it shatters the ego and transcends the fear of death. To illustrate, he recalled the example of Imam Ali alayhi salam, who never fled a battlefield. When Muawiyah threatened him with an army, Imam Ali's reply was iconic. By Allah, the son of Abu Talib is more familiar with the death than a baby with its mother's bosom. That, Brother Khalil said, is the voice of a being whose fitrah is fully alive. He was not bargaining with fear. He was already free. Brother Khalil described this awakening changes everything. It alters our perception of reality, of Allah, and of ourselves. Illusions dissolve. The mountains we thought stood between us and God are revealed as mirages. He shared the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam at the Red Sea. His unwavering certainty that my Lord is with me was the very key that parted the waves. That closeness, Brother Khalil stressed, is the birthright of every soul that turns from the nafs to the fitrah.
Tonight is our fourth lecture on freeing the butterfly within. Last night, we concluded that when a human being is driven by his animal instinct, by what we call Tabi'a, then he seeks reward for all that he does. And he is driven by fear. As opposed to this, if a person is driven by his divine instinct, by his true human nature, by his fitrah, then he overcomes the fear of death. We also said that such a human being is not driven by fear or greed. And when this fitrah reveals itself, when it awakens fully, it comes about instantaneously. It happens suddenly. We prepare the ground, and then an incident in our life, a miracle we witness, or a calamity befalls us, and that brings about this instantaneous enlightenment, a shattering of the ego. Now, oftentimes when we talk about fear and greed, we attribute this directly to human nature. For example, we often say our stock markets are driven by fear and greed, isn't it? When there is fear, people sell. When there is greed, people buy. And we say this is human nature. What we will attempt to see tonight is that is not human nature. That is actually the animal nature within us. That is that nature within us that fights for survival. That is that nature within us that wants to flee from pain. That is the nature within us that seeks pleasure. It is for this reason that you hear time and again that Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, he never fled from the battlefield. Everyone fled, but he did not flee. Even in the most difficult of times, in the hardest of circumstances. Why? Because he was an enlightened being. He was not driven by fear or greed. He had transcended that bound. Death was not something he was afraid of. When Muawiyah wrote to him and said to him, O son of Abi Talib, I will bring an army with me from Damascus and fight you. Read Nahjul Balagha, what the Imam wrote back to him. He said, O son of Abu Sufyan, are you threatening me with death? By Allah, the son of Abu Talib is more at ease with death than a baby is with the bosom of its mother. These are the words of Imam Ali in Nahjul Balagha. He is telling Muawiyah, don't scare me with death. I am beyond death. His desire was martyrdom. He kept crying for that at Badr, at Uhud. When you read the books of Tariq, he kept coming to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and saying, Ya Rasulullah, why did I not get shahada? Why did I not get martyred? And the Prophet kept promising him, you will get martyrdom. And his words when he attained it was what? Fuztu wa Rabbil Kaaba. He didn't say it when he killed Marhab. He didn't say it when he defeated anyone. But when he was slain and attained martyrdom, he said, now I have achieved what I was waiting for. Fuztu wa Rabbil Kaaba. So when this shift happens within a human being, and he moves from Tabi'a to Fitrah, he moves from that worm-like state to that caterpillar-like state, not only does the ego shatter, but his perception of reality changes. All illusions and all fears fall apart. He sees truth with his entire being. It is not just an intellection or a mental process, but it is something he witnesses with his entire being. And there is a complete disidentification with the body, just like we saw yesterday with the magicians of Fir'aun. They transcended not only the fear of death, but even the fear of torture. The Prophet Musa alayhi salam, when he asks Allah, Ya Rabbi, أَأَنْتَ بَعِيدٌ فَأُنَادِيكَ أَمْ قَرِيبٌ فَأُنَاجِيكَ? Are you far, my Lord, so I should call out to you? Or are you near, so I should whisper to you? Should I do dua or should I do munajat? Ad'uka aw unajik? Allah says, Ya Musa, ana jalisun man dhakarani. I am sitting right beside the person who is remembering me. Ud'uni astajib lakum. What a beautiful Lord. You don't have to wait for the doors of the place of worship to open. You don't have to ring a bell to wake up the Lord. You just mention Him, He is there. Udhkurni adhkurkum. That sense of Allah is with me all the time. That is a very empowering feeling. As we have said in the past, when Musa alayhi salam takes Banu Israel away from Egypt and he is trapped on the shores of a sea and he sees the approaching army of Fir'aun and they are charging to massacre them, and the people are making their final wishes and saying, we are done, we are finished. There is the sea on this side, there is the raging, charging army. Musa stands alone. He says, Kalla, inna rabbi ma'i. Never, never, my Lord is with me, He will guide me. And it is only after he says that Allah says to him, O Musa, strike the sea now with your staff. And it splits open and Allah says, then the waves rose on both sides like two mountains. But it first waited until Musa said, Kalla inna rabbi ma'i, He is with me all the time. And it is not restricted to Musa. There is a hadith al-Qudsi in which we are told on one occasion the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, because he was Kalimullah, he used to speak to Allah directly. On one occasion he said, Ya Rabbi. As soon as he said, Ya Rabbi, Allah said, yes Musa. Immediately, Ya Rabbi, yes Musa. Now he felt this pleasure that I was responded to so quickly. He said, Ya Rabbi, is this an honor for me only? Or do others have this honor that as soon as they mention you, he said, no, it's not just for you, O Musa. Anyone who detaches himself from everything else but me and calls me, I am right there with them. This is one of the benefits of moving from Tabi'a to Fitrah and becoming someone who dedicates himself and attaches himself to Allah. There is a mystic who presents this in a very beautiful manner, how when the ego shatters, you see the world differently, you see everything connected as one. If you pluck a leaf, you feel you are plucking a part of yourself. You see a nur around every creation of Allah, and you see everything ultimately emanates from Allah. And that feeling of Allah is the only reality. He describes this as follows. He says, when we seek spirituality, we are like human beings who see a mountain of sand in front of us that obstructs us between us and our Lord. So every morning we take a little spoon or a shovel and we keep taking out a little bit of the sand to remove that mountain between us and Allah. And we keep doing that day after day after day. Then one day, when that enlightenment comes to us, when that ego shatters, when we come out of that chrysalis, that cocoon, we wake up and realize that in reality there was no mountain at all. We were digging at an illusion. And the most beautiful thing is that the same idea is given to us in the Quran as well. In Surah An-Nur, which is chapter 24 of the Quran, verse 39, Allah gives us an example. He says, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَعْمَالُهُمْ كَسَرَابٍ بِقِيعَةٍ. Those who are faithless, their actions are like a mirage in a plain. يَحْسَبُهُ الظَّمْآنُ مَاء. The one who is thirsty, he thinks there is water where there is the mirage. There is that illusion, there is the thing that will make him happy. He thinks that is what is there. حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَهُ لَمْ يَجِدْهُ شَيْئًا. Until he comes to that mirage, he finds that in reality there is nothing there. وَوَجَدَ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ. Instead he finds Allah is waiting for him there. فَيُوَفِّيهِ حِسَابَهُ وَاللَّهُ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. So Allah takes him to account for his deeds, and Allah is swift in reckoning. So we make a choice, my dear brothers and sisters. We either accept that we have a divine reality in us that has to be awakened, and we search for our Lord and we find Him and evolve spiritually and let that metamorphosis occur within us before we die and transcend the fear of death while we are still in our physical bodies. Or we continue with our animal instinct. We continue to be driven by fear and greed. We continue being deluded that this avatar, this alien body is the real me. We continue being obsessed with materialism, with decorating this body, with decorating our world, with pretending this world is real and permanent and I'm not going to die. With hope after hope I will be alive tomorrow until death comes to me. And then I wake up to something frightening, to something shocking. What is it that is shocking? The fact that I never evolved, that I remained the caterpillar, I remained the worm. I never really allowed my potential to awaken within me.
Anticipating the next logical question, Brother Khalil posed it himself. So, is the Nafs evil? Should we try to rip it out? His answer was immediate and firm. No, the Nafs and Fitrah are two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other on this journey. He outlined three essential reasons why the Nafs is necessary. First, it is the arena of our growth. Our difficult relationships, our daily irritations, these are not random punishments. he said. They are divine curriculum. He gave a simple example. A person who believes himself patient until a toddler reveals a hidden reserve of anger. That moment of conflict is a mirror. It shows us the animal instinct we have not yet mastered. Second, it is the channel for trials. Calamities, he explained, are not setbacks. They are spiritual accelerants, sent in proportion to our faith to lift us higher. Third, it builds the ego that must be surrendered. Enlightenment does not come from being egoless, Brother Khalil clarified. It comes from shattering a developed ego. You cannot break what was never built. He drew from his personal experience fostering children. A child who has never owned anything cannot understand possession or learn true generosity. They must first develop a sense of I and mine, be taught to share, and then choose to let it go. That voluntary surrender is where real transformation begins.
Now, by this time you are probably thinking, Tabi'a is evil. I need to really avoid this. You do not need to avoid Tabi'a, you need to rein it. We have said this before. We said Tabi'a and Fitrah are two sides of the same coin. You cannot pluck it out. You need the physical body while you are in this world. It has a purpose. It is a vehicle that is needed for you to evolve spiritually. So let's talk a little bit about why we need Tabi'a. A few reasons. One, of course, what I just mentioned. That the physical experience in this world requires Tabi'a for the evolution of the soul. The suffering that we experience because of interacting with others who are less realized beings, who are ignorant, who are more Tabi'a driven than us, also has a purpose in helping our spiritual evolution. When we have a spouse who is troublesome, when we have children who are troublesome, not through our fault, even though we have done our best, or we have people at work, we have employees, or we have an employer who gives us grief, or we interact with people in society, we meet people on the streets and in the malls who might abuse us, who might insult us, we live in a jungle of our own species, don't we? When we interact with these beings who are more ignorant than we are, or more Tabi'a driven than we are, that conflict is also an opportunity for us to look at ourselves and measure how we are doing spiritually. As an example, I might have this idea in my mind that I am very evolved. People might tell me all the time, you are very patient, you are very kind-hearted. So I now believe that I am very patient and I'm very kind-hearted. And then Allah brings into my life a 2-year-old. And when I interact with him, there are lots of occasions when I lose my cool and I show anger and I lose patience with him. Those moments of conflict that I experience, though it be a child, when I raise my hand and hit the child, that is a moment for me to also measure myself, that I do not have the ability to control my anger. I have not yet reined this force, this animal instinct within me. Let me explain this to you with a better example, with a personal experience that will explain to you. Many of you know that my family and I, we foster children, and we've been fostering for 7-8 years. I have seen children of different ages and different groups coming through my door. And I have had the pleasure of learning human behavior and psychology from children. I have seen children who have absolutely no sense of personal space or respect for anyone's possession. If they were to talk to you, they would stand like this, right here, in your face. And these are not like little kids, not necessarily a 1-year-old. If they were to see anything with you, they would start digging into your pocket, opening your bag, came to your home, they would be totally like invading everything, right? Now, at first you wonder, what's happening here? Is it because no one taught these children etiquette or social skills or manners? But upon further observance, you come to realize the reason they do not respect the possessions of others and the personal space of others is because they have not known it themselves. They have never possessed anything. They have never known what it is to have a school bag. They have never known what it is to have a toy. They have never known what it is to have a room or a bed of their own. They have never had that blanket that every child holds on to when they sleep. They have never known even a relationship. What does it mean to have a father or a mother? They would call me Baba, they would call you Baba, they would call everyone in this room Baba. It's just a word, it has no meaning to them. And because they have never possessed, possession has no meaning to them. They don't understand why your personal space or your possession should be respected, because they have no concept of it. On the other hand, if they would have grown and had an ego and developed attachment and began possessing things and developed the sense of I-ness, my toy, my bag, my school, my father, my mother, and along with that I taught them to be generous and I taught them to be charitable and I taught them to share with others, then when they grow to a certain maturity and they realize the pitfalls of the mind and the ego and the animal instinct, they will be ready to give it up of their own volition. It is only when they give it up of their own understanding that it has value and will bring about enlightenment. You cannot take it by force from anyone. And along with that, they will respect other people's possessions and other people's space. Because you cannot enlighten people by taking their possessions forcefully from them. You must let them give it up themselves. You begin to see that the development of an ego has a role. You cannot rob a child of that. You cannot say, I want to raise my child without any sense of I-ness or any sense of self whatsoever. And therefore, perfection comes about through struggling. And through that struggling, we attain a full realization of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and of our own selves. Let's give a few more analogies so that this relationship is understood completely. If I have a young seed or a plant or a sapling, I will not plant it outdoors in winter or in summer. Because if I do that, it will die with the cold or with the heat of the sun. I will begin by planting it in a flower pot. I will keep it indoors in a greenhouse, for example. That very same plant, when it begins to bloom and the roots begin to grow, the flower pot now becomes a restriction. It stops it from growing. It is at that point that I break open the flower pot and I take this out and I begin to plant it outdoors so that it grows to its full potential. If I don't do that, it will die. Human beings are the same. Initially, a human being must be nurtured in the pot of Tabi'a. That is why when we are born with our animal instinct, with our Tabi'a, until there is maturity and understanding. Once there is maturity and understanding, the pot of Tabi'a must be broken and exposed to Fitrah. If that is not done, then the soul will die. So you as a parent, one of your tasks is to be the greenhouse, to give your child that flower pot in which they grow, and then to learn at what point they are ready to now come out of that flower pot and reveal their full potential, when it is time for them to grow out of that restriction. To give you another example of this, when your child is young, they attach to different things. Human potential is unlimited. The things we attach to are limited. They are restricting. If we remain attached to these objects throughout our life, then we never realize our full potential. The only thing that is unlimited is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why I need to attach to Allah only, because it is only by attaching to something that is unlimited, I will have unlimited potential to grow out of. Okay, this is very important. The reason Allah wants us to attach only to Him is because our potential is unlimited. He is saying, I am infinite. If you attach to me, your attributes can be unlimited in how far you go. And that is why we have all these ahadith al-Qudsi that say, become mine, I will become like yours, I will be yours, and I will make you like myself. I have the power to say kun fayakun. I will make you such that you will say kun fayakun, and so on and so forth. If we stay in the flower pot only, whether it is ourselves or our child, at best we will become an ornamental piece. We will be a decorative piece. But to become this walnut tree, or to become this vast oak tree, to stand in the open air, we must come out of that restriction, out of that limited world of tabi'ah. Now, this pot, therefore, protects the sapling, but it is also its prison. With the same analogy, the human body is the same, as we shall see in the coming nights. The human body protects the soul, but it is also the prison of the soul. Remember this statement, that the human body protects the soul while we are in this world, but it is also its prison. One of the reasons why Allah sends calamities on you, using this analogy, is to break open this flower pot, to bring you out of the greenhouse into the open, so that you can grow into this walnut tree, so that you can grow into this oak tree. It appears to be unfair to us. It makes us insecure, because all our lives we have been warm, we have been cushy in that greenhouse, sitting in that flower pot. Life was good. I had a good job, I had family, I had children, I had a good paycheck, I was healthy, everything was going well. Why Allah? Why me? Why now? That's the question we ask. What we don't realize is, I was in my cocoon, my potential to grow had stopped, my roots could not expand. So I was in the rat race, but I thought life was good. That calamity that befell me, that was the breaking of the flower pot. That was Allah saying to us, no, you're not good. You are running on animal instinct. You are driven by fear and greed. Come out of the greenhouse. Come out into the dark tunnel. Cross and see the light at the other end of the tunnel. Let me show you what your full potential is. So that calamity, therefore, is again an opportunity that brings us to our full potential. When the flower pot shatters through this calamity, then Fitrah begins to speak. What does Fitrah say when calamity befalls and the flower pot breaks? Fitrah says, الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. When afflictions and misfortunes befall them, they realize that they are not in control of their lives. that this is not permanent. They say, indeed, we come from Allah, and to Him is our return. That statement is filled with realization, but that realization only came إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ. As soon as life appears to be happy, we forget to call to Allah. We forget this inna lillah, because then we go back to our mode of fear and greed. We go back to being driven by tabi'a, and therefore we go back to being comfortable with how our life was. So Fitrah immediately senses that when this flower pot has broken, when something is wrong with my life, the walls of Tabi'a are falling apart. The walls of my ego, the shattering of my ego boundary is taking place. Tabi'a, on the other hand, says, I am invincible. I will never die. I am a God unto myself. I will live forever. Because Tabi'a doesn't want to leave the cocoon. It does not want to leave the flower pot. It does not want to leave the mode in which it is happy.
To make this relationship clear, Brother Khalil offered a central analogy. Think of a young sapling, he said. It needs the protection of a flower pot and a greenhouse. Otherwise, it will perish. But once it begins to grow, that same pot becomes a prison, choking its roots. To become a great oak, the pot must be broken. He applied the analogy directly. The Nafs is that flower pot. Our body is the greenhouse. They are necessary protective structures for the soul's early development. He then made a critical point about attachment. In that pot, we attach to limited things, jobs, status, possessions. But human potential is unlimited. We can only realize that unlimited potential by attaching to the only thing that is infinite, Allah. This led him to address suffering. So why the pain? Why the calamity? Brother Khalil asked. That calamity is answered. Is the divine hand breaking the flower pot? When life is comfortable, we grow complacent within our limitations. The trial that shatters our comfort is not a punishment but a severe mercy. It is Allah saying, you have stopped growing. You are running on animal instinct. Come out of the greenhouse. Let me show you what you are meant to be. It is in that breaking, he noted, that the Fitrah finally finds its voice, whispering the ultimate truth. Indeed, to Allah we belong, and to Him we shall return.
Now, Plato has a book called The Republic. In his book, The Republic, he has a beautiful analogy. He makes up a fictitious story to show human behavior. He says, let us suppose there is a cave that is underground, and in this cave there are human beings who have lived all their lives as prisoners. These human beings are kept facing a blank wall. They are tied and chained in their hands and their feet, and there is a collar on their neck which prevents them from moving their head to either side. They can only look at the blank wall in front of them. Okay? Behind them, there is a fire that has been lit a little far away. Between their backs and the fire, people sometimes pass by. These are people who are not prisoners. And as they pass, and as objects pass between them and the fire casts shadows of those people and those objects on the wall that is in front of them. So all they see is the shadows in front of them. All their lives, they sit there, and the only thing they see are these shadows. Sometimes those people talk, but because it is a cave, they hear echoes, which are distorted sounds. These prisoners, their perception of reality will only be those shadows, those distorted images on the wall. That is all they will know to be reality. Eventually, as time passes, they will begin to give names to those shadows. They will begin noticing that some shadows look the same all the time because the same human beings are passing, or the same objects, a horse passes, a camel passes. So they will start giving names to those objects and saying, this object is called this object is called that. Just like we name things in this world and say, this is a tree, this is a horse, this is a camel. Okay. Now, this becomes their perception of reality. Then they create a hierarchy and a chain amongst them. Those who are very smart at naming these things, those who can study these shadows more carefully, those who can name them quicker than the others, they are conferred certain honors. They are told, you have a master's degree in reality. You have a master's or a PhD on shadows. They don't know these are shadows. To them, this is the world. This is reality. Now, this is Plato's analogy. A man now comes into the cave, who in our analogy would be a prophet from Allah. He comes and he frees one of the prisoners. He removes the chains and the collar from him. He allows him to walk around the cave for a bit. The man now looks around and he realizes this is not the only thing that was real. There was other things that were more real. He looks at the fire, he looks at these objects. The prophet who comes, he tells this man that, look, what you have been looking at is just shadow. That's not reality. This is reality. Now, all his life he has only known this to be reality. So he denies this. He says, no, wait a minute. This is reality. How do you know this is reality? He says, well, don't you see when these things move, then you see images there? He says, but how is this coming about? He says, well, the fire. But how is fire causing shadow? He doesn't understand this. So the Prophet takes his hand and says, come with me outside the cave. He resists because it is a world he does not know. The Prophet takes him by force to the open world. Initially, when he sees the sun, it totally blinds him. He cannot bear to see the light. He has never seen nur. He has only known dhulumat. He can't understand what is happening. He is left in this real world for a bit. Now he begins to discover this world. He sees flowers growing. He sees animals. He sees shadows in this world as well. He sees reflections in the water from the real object. He begins to see the meaning of reflection. He sees shadows from the sun. He begins to see how shadows work. His perception changes. He ultimately begins to realize that the only thing that is of most essential nature here is the sun. It is the sun that is causing the plants to grow. It is the sun that is keeping these animals alive. It is the sun that is casting all these shadows that people think is reality. In our analogy, this reality, this sun would be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, at some point, his nature will say to him, my God, all my people are in the cave. They think those shadows are the real world. What will they do if they find out this is the real world? So he is very happy and he goes back down into the cave to tell them about this. Well, guess what happens? He cannot see the shadow properly, first of all. Everything looks distorted. The darkness is hurting, is skewing the things because he's now used to the real world. And so they start laughing at him. They say, so you thought you were the smart one, right? You went to seek truth and knowledge. Now you can't even see the truth properly here. Right? So he's talking to them, trying to convince them. They jeer him, they mock him, they laugh at him, that you're mad. What are these things you're talking about? These things are not real. They cannot even move their head, so that's the only thing they're seeing. So what he now tries to do is, he tries to open their chains. He says, come, let me show you. Well, guess what happens? They get angry, they get violent, they push him away. Just because you are mad, you want us to be mad? Go away. This is reality. We don't want this from you. And if he was to insist, they would kill him. If he was to open up their chains, they would pounce upon him and kill him because he is forcing them out of the cocoon. He is forcing them out into the open world. He is breaking their flower pot. They don't want that. Yet his consciousness will not allow him to leave those people sitting in the cave facing a blank wall believing the shadows is reality. So to him, he would rather risk being killed than not say the truth. It is for this reason that our species always opposed the prophets when they first came and we killed them. When the Anbiya came to us, what did they come to tell us? They came to tell us, your understanding of this world is not real. You are driven by animal instinct. Come, let us show you your fitrah. Come out of the cave. Come through the tunnel. Come out of the cocoon. Come out of the greenhouse. Break the flower pot. We resist. Instead, what did we say to them? We said, لَإِن لَمْ تَنْتَهُ Surah Yasin, chapter 36, verse 18. لَإِن لَمْ تَنْتَهُ لَنَرْجُمَنَّكُمْ وَلَيَمَسَّنَّكُمْ مِنَّا عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. If you do not stop doing what you are doing, preaching to us and telling us about all these things, we will stone you and you will receive a grievous punishment from us. This was the tendency of human beings who never knew the truth. What the prophets wanted to tell us is, if you remain a flower pot in the greenhouse, you will never see the gardener who is outside. The gardener with a capital G, Azza wa Jal. Come out and become an oak tree and see the gardener. Realize your full potential. Become this magnificent tree that is described in Surah Ibrahim, chapter 14, verse 24. كَشَجَرَةٌ طَيِّبَةٌ أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Like a tree whose roots is firm and its branches extend wide and far. تُؤْتِي أُكُلَهَا كُلَّ حِينٍ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا. It is able to give out fruits in all seasons by the permission of its Lord. Do not be كَشَجَرَةٍ خَبِيثَةٍ اجْتُثَّتْ min fawq al-ardi ma laha min qarar, like a bad tree whose roots have come out and it has no stability. This is what the prophets wanted to show us. But we resisted because they're telling us to come out of Tabi'a, to come out of this cocoon. And therefore we hear that we say, if you're always holding on to what is familiar, when will you see that which Allah has placed for you to see, that which is part of your journey and your destiny to realize your full potential? So when we restrict ourselves, when we say, I don't want to come out of my animal nature, I want to fulfill my desires, I want to be driven by my animal instinct, I'm happy living a life driven by fear and greed, I don't want all these matters of spirituality. Not only is there the danger of the shock and the fright at the time of death, when our egos collapse forcibly and we are forcefully taken out of our cocoons, but we also prevent ourselves from realizing our full potential. What I mean, just to give you an example that we might be able to relate to, how we limit our potentials when we refuse to be fitrah-driven creatures and we insist on being tabi'a-driven creatures. Let us suppose I start volunteering at this center and I volunteer to look after the shoe racks outside, because I don't think anybody does that right now, so just take that as an example. And I do that for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And I perfect it as an art. I make it a really, I bring it down to fine art. I have rules, regulations, leather shoes go on top, runners, second rack, flip-flops down, if you have winter boots down, arranged by color, by size, it's all perfect. Everyone who comes here thanks me, praises me, acknowledges me. And I truly believe I am doing this for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I am doing it to serve his guests who come to listen to his majlis. And I'm totally, convinced that this is my reasoning. Now, after I've done that for 15, 20 years, this young lad comes about and he starts questioning how I do things. He says, why don't we move these shelves a little bit like this or that? So initially I'll tell him, you know what, just move along. Okay, I've been doing this for 20 years. Don't teach me my job. But he insists, no, I think we can make this better. We can put in extra 4 shelves at the top. Maybe we don't have to be so particular about arranging it by color. He goes to the Jamaat, he speaks to them, he comes back. Now I feel threatened. What is this man doing? He's taking away something that is my job, that is my responsibility. Okay? So my first response is, I will start backbiting. I'll go home, I'll talk to my spouse. You won't believe what happened today. There is this, silly idiot fellow coming about now, questioning how I arrange shoes, trying to take over my position, right? Then I will start talking about him to anyone and everyone who will listen. My belief was what? I'm doing this for Imam Hussein, okay? But what I'm trying to show you here is how we limit our potential. So then I go to the Jamaat and I say, look, this is not right. But instead, I'm surprised that they don't support me. They support the other guy and saying, well, maybe you should listen to him. Maybe he's got a point, right? So now I'm opposed to that as well, that, oh my God, these guys are really trying to, my position is threatened. So now I start acting against and I start threatening and distorting things. What I might do perhaps is, if the majlis is going on, I might start, talking loudly just to disrupt things, or matam, I'll just talk loudly, do something like that, or maybe rearrange the shoes so that people can't find their shoes, just so people know that they can't do this without me, okay? Well, that doesn't work as well. Life seems to go on. So then I come to the Jamaat and I say, you know what, I quit. You guys, look after the shoes yourself. I'm not coming anymore. I'm out of here. Well, that doesn't work as well because life goes on. People still come to the mosque. So now I start discouraging people outside and I say, you really shouldn't go to Massimin Islamic Center. I mean, you should see the mess in the shoe rack. Nobody, it's terrible. You really shouldn't go there, okay? Well, that doesn't work. So then I go to another center and I say, do you need someone to look after your shoes? I'm a really good shoe keeper. I've got like 20 years experience. Here's my resume, right? What am I doing here? This is not a bad experience. We all experience this in our lives at some point. It is not bad. Why? Because at this point now, I can look at myself in the mirror and realize that I was not doing this for Imam Hussein. I was doing it for myself. I reveal myself to myself. But when did I learn to realize that I was nothing but a shoe keeper for my ego? Not even, if I was a shoe keeper for Imam Hussein, nurun ala nur. But I was a shoe keeper for my ego. When did I realize this? When the issue of losing status, losing power. Remember the magicians? They asked Fir'aun, "Inna lana la ajran in kunna nahnu al-ghalibun." Will we have a reward if we win over Musa? He said, yes, and you will have position. Wa innakum idhan lamina al-muqarrabin. You will be the most closest people to me. Shaitan also thought he was the most sincere worshipper of Allah for millions of years, because the angels kept thanking him, praising him. He kept doing sajda, he kept praying. When did he see his true nature? When the issue of khilafat came about. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. He thought this was my right, why was someone else given? And I will add to this and say, you will not know whether you are driven by your ego when you take a position of authority. You will only know it when you come down from that position of authority and lose it. Because it is at that point we have attached ourselves to it and we are threatened by it. So these kind of an experiences, now, if I become that, then I limit myself. This is my potential. Some people will say, this is just, our people. How many times you hear it says, oh, we Khojas, we never grow out of this. Or we Indians, we never, we Muslims, we're just like this. Somebody once told me, we Indians, we're just like crabs. We're just like crabs? What makes us like crabs? He says, don't you see when you go to the fish market or you go to the pet store, the other animals, they cover the top so the animals can't get out. But the crabs, they don't cover them, they leave it open. I say, why? He says, because crabs cannot see anyone go forward. As soon as one of the crabs starts crawling, the other one will pull him down. Sit where you're going. So we are like crabs. We don't need anyone to destroy us. We just pull our own selves down. So we do this. We say, oh, we are just like this. Let me tell you something. It is not us only. You go to a church, you go to a synagogue, you go to a Jamaat Khana, you go to a Sikh temple, you go to a Hindu temple, you go to a Shia mosque, anywhere you go. This problem you will find everywhere, because most human beings are caterpillars. They're not butterflies. So they are driven by fear. They are driven by the need to survive. Survival is key to them. But what I want to end by saying is that when you see this, don't say this is human nature. This is not human nature. This is animal nature. This is instinct. This is survival. This is Tabi'a. This is not Fitrah. Fitrah does not care about this. Fitrah is a butterfly. A butterfly soars in the heavens and dances in the sun. It does not care about those little worms in the small patch in the backyard who are fighting and saying, this is my rotting leaf, why are you sitting on my leaf? This is my corner of the mud, why are you on my corner of the mud? Fitrah is an oak tree. It is singing the praise of its Lord and talking to the gardener and enjoying his love. It is not the little flower pot in the greenhouse that is saying, why is this flower pot in front of me, or why is this flower pot on a higher rack and I'm on a lower rack? That is for Tabi'i people. You will not find this in people of Fitrah. So people of Fitrah are not greedy for reward. They are not greedy for status. They are not greedy for position. These discussions, these talks, my dear brothers and sisters, are not to hurt anyone's feelings, and nor are they targeted to any individual or center. I have traveled the world and I have seen this in all parts of the world. These are to help us see our own selves before we die, so that we assess ourselves and say, am I driven by Tabi'a or am I driven by Fitrah?
Brother Khalil explained that humanity's resistance to this painful growth is ancient, best illustrated by Plato's allegory of the cave. He described the prisoners chained from birth mistaking shadows for reality, and their violent rejection of the one who returned from the sunlight to free them. The prophets, he said, were these liberators, and our ancestral response is recorded in the Quran. If you do not stop, we will stone you. He brought the resistance into a modern, humble context. Imagine volunteering for 20 years to manage the shuraks at the mosque. You perfect your system. You believe sincerely you are serving Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Then a newcomer suggests a change. Brother Khalil described the spiral of jealousy, gossip, and resentment that can follow. What is revealed in that reaction? It reveals that perhaps you were not only serving the Imam, you were also serving your own ego. We only see our true ego-driven nature when our position is threatened. This behavior, he said, is often dismissed as a cultural trait, crab mentality, where one crab pulls down another trying to escape the bucket. But it is not just our people, Brother Khalil stated. It is the universal condition of the Nafs-driven caterpillar. He concluded with a powerful poetic contrast that encapsulated the entire series. The Nafs, he said, is the worm, arguing over its patch of mud. The Fitrah is the butterfly soaring, connected to the divine, and the oak tree, its roots firm, singing the praise of its gardener. Brother Khalil's final words were an invitation, a mirror held up to every heart. This discussion is a tool for self-assessment before we meet our Lord. So tonight, ask yourself the decisive question: am I being driven by my nafs, or am I being called by my fitrah? The path of fitrah leads to the infinite. It is time to allow our pots to be broken and to become the majestic trees we were always created to be. Thank you for watching. Let's make a difference together. If this video inspired you, hit like, follow, and share it with others. Your support helps spread knowledge and positivity, building a community where we all grow. Every like, follow, and share makes an impact. Let's keep the momentum going.